I donated my kidney to save my husband's life weeks after his recovery. He threw me and our kids out. Months later, he showed up begging with a secret that changed everything. My name is Charlotte. I'm 34 years old. For 7 years, I poured my heart and soul into building a life with my husband, Gregory. We had a beautiful home in Cedarwood Heights, 2 bright-eyed kids, and what I thought was an unbreakable bond. I believed we were invincible, the kind of couple that could weather any storm together. Back then, I couldn't imagine anything powerful enough to tear us apart. Then everything shattered the day Gregory collapsed. At first, we dismissed it as exhaustion. He'd been pulling double shifts at the engineering firm, surviving on coffee and energy bars, barely getting 4 hours of sleep a night. But then it happened again. And again. Until one chilly November morning, I found him sprawled on the bathroom floor. His skin pale as paper, lips tinged blue, chest barely rising. After countless hospital visits and what felt like 100 tests, the doctors delivered the verdict that stopped my world cold. Kidney failure. Both kidneys were shutting down, slowly poisoning him from the inside. The words hit me like a freight train in that sterile hospital room with its beeping machines and antiseptic smell. All I could hear was the thundering of my own heartbeat. Without a transplant, Dr. Richardson said, her eyes fixed on mine with uncomfortable intensity, he won't make it. Dialysis can buy him time, but not much. Months, maybe a year at best. The transplant waiting list stretched out like an endless highway. 2 years, possibly 3. But Gregory didn't have that kind of time. The doctors made that painfully clear that I remember sitting beside his hospital bed that night, my fingers laced through his. His hand felt clammy and cold, his breathing shallow and labored. We'll beat this, I whispered, fighting back the tears burning behind my eyes. You're going to be okay. Promise you that. I didn't hesitate for even a second. The next morning, I marched straight to Dr. Richardson's office and demanded to be tested. The risks didn't frighten me. The pain didn't matter. Gregory was my husband, the father of my children, my best friend. I would have walked through fire to keep him alive. 3 agonizing days later, Dr. Richardson called me into her office. She looked up from the file folder and gave me the smallest smile. Charlotte, you're a perfect match. My knees buckled right there. I grabbed the edge of her desk to steady myself as relief crashed over me in waves, washing away weeks of suffocating fear. I practically ran down the hallway to Gregory's room, tears streaming down my face, and collapsed against his chest. His tired eyes suddenly sparked with life, a light I hadn't seen in months. It's me, I said, my voice breaking. I'm going to save you. The surgery was brutal, far worse than anyone had prepared me for. I woke up gasping for air. A searing pain tearing through my left side like someone had driven a hot poker through my rib cage. Every breath felt like glass in my lungs. I couldn't sit up, couldn't roll over without crying out. Nurses floated in and out, adjusting IVs, checking vitals, murmuring soft reassurances. But every single time someone entered the room, I'd force out the same desperate question, how's Gregory? Is he okay? You need to focus on healing, Charlotte, one nurse said gently, her hand warm on my shoulder. But I couldn't focus on myself. Every thought, every worry stayed locked on him, the man I'd just given a piece of my body to save. The weeks following the surgery were the hardest of my entire life. Everything hurt. Sitting up felt like torture. Standing made me dizzy. Even breathing deeply sent sharp jolts through my abdomen. My incision throbbed constantly, a dull ache that never quite went away. Exhaustion clung to me like wet clothes, but I kept pushing forward because Gregory needed me. He was still weak, moving carefully like every step might be his last. The doctors had been crystal clear about his recovery protocol: immunosuppressants on a rigid schedule, a kidney-friendly diet with no salt or processed foods, physical therapy 3 times a week, and endless follow-up appointments. He couldn't lift anything heavier than 5 pounds or walk more than a few yards without help. And then there were our kids. Lily was 5 years old, and little Hudson had just turned 3. They needed their mother, too. I remember one particular morning. My alarm shrieked at 5 a.m., and I groaned as I pushed myself upright, my side screaming in protest. I shuffled into the kitchen and started breakfast: steel-cut oatmeal for Gregory, scrambled eggs for the kids. Mama, can we have pancakes? Lily asked, dragging her stuffed bunny behind her, eyes still heavy with sleep. Her sweet little voice made my heart ache with guilt. Not today, sweetheart, I said, smoothing her tangled blonde hair away from her face. But when Daddy's feeling better, we'll make blueberry pancakes every Sunday morning. Promise. Her face lit up like I just offered her a trip to Disneyland. I packed their lunchboxes with sandwiches and apple slices, found Lily's missing sparkly sneaker under the couch, helped Hudson zip up his superhero jacket, and sent them off with my mother, who had become my absolute lifeline during those brutal first few weeks. Then I turned my attention to Gregory. He was propped up against the headboard, still pale but alert, his eyes tracking me as I moved around the bedroom. "Time for your meds," I said. Handing him the water glass and the daily pill organizer, he looked at me with exhausted eyes. "You should rest. You're still recovering too." "I will," I replied, pressing my hand against my aching lower back. "Right after I start the laundry and mop up that juice Hudson spilled yesterday." His jaw tightened, fingers plucking at the bedsheet. "I hate watching you do everything alone." I sat on the edge of the bed and squeezed his hand. "You gave me 7 years of love, Gregory. I gave you a kidney. That's what marriage means. We hold each other up when we can't stand on our own." Some nights, after tucking the kids into bed, I'd collapse onto the living room couch, surrounded by prescription bottles and half-folded laundry. I'd stare at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead until the tears finally came silent, bitter tears that I never let anyone see. For almost 2 years that became our rhythm: pain, patience, and slow incremental progress. Gregory graduated from a wheelchair to a walker, then to tentative steps across the living room carpet. Every milestone, no matter how small, felt like a miracle worth celebrating. The day he jogged around our block for the first time, I stood on the front porch, clapping and cheering like he just won an Olympic gold medal. "I honestly didn't think I'd ever run again," he said, breathless but grinning ear to ear. "I always knew you would," I whispered, wiping away happy tears. "You're so much stronger than you realize." By the second year, Gregory looked like himself again. His color had returned, his energy was back, and he started joking with the kids over dinner the way he used to. At his regular checkups, the doctors seemed genuinely impressed. "Everything looks fantastic," Dr. Richardson said, nodding approvingly at his charts. "Keep taking your medications and you'll live a long, healthy life." I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt, but while Gregory healed and thrived, I was quietly falling apart. To help cover the mountain of medical bills drowning us, I took a job as a cashier at Quick Shop, the grocery store on Riverside Drive. The work was steady but exhausting: 8-hour shifts on my feet, scanning groceries, lifting heavy bags, dealing with impatient customers, while my surgical scar ached beneath my polyester uniform. I'd drag myself home at 10 p.m., kick off my sneakers by the door, and still have to pack school lunches, fold mountains of laundry, and sort through bills we could barely afford. Some nights I just sat at the kitchen table, head in my hands, whispering to myself, just a little longer. Just keep going. From the living room, I'd hear Gregory reading bedtime stories to the kids, his voice full of warmth and life. And despite my exhaustion, I'd smile. "It was all worth it, daughter, at least that's what I kept telling myself." One evening in late spring, I came home after a particularly long shift. My feet were killing me, but my heart felt light. Gregory's recovery had been going beautifully. Dr. Richardson had just cleared him to start exercising again. For the first time in forever, I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, we'd finally made it through the worst. I pushed open the front door and dropped my purse on the entryway table. "Hey, I'm home," I froze. Standing in my kitchen, looking completely at ease, was a tall woman I'd never seen before in my life. Her auburn hair was swept into an elegant French twist, her designer blazer perfectly tailored, not a single wrinkle anywhere. She looked like she'd stepped straight out of a luxury magazine, polished, sophisticated, and completely out of place in my modest kitchen. I blinked, confused and disoriented. Who are you?" She turned to face me slowly, deliberately. Her smile was cold and smug. "Oh, you must be Charlotte." My blood turned to ice before I could form another word. Gregory walked into the room. His eyes met mine, steady, calm, and utterly unreadable. "Charlotte," he said, his tone rehearsed and flat. "This is Natalie. She's the woman I love. The woman I've been in love with for 3 years." The grocery bag slipped from my fingers. Oranges tumbled out, rolling across the kitchen tile in different directions. I stood frozen, unable to move or think, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break free. "Gregory, what are you saying? After everything I've done? After I gave you my kidney?" He raised his hand sharply, cutting me off without a second thought. "And I'll always be grateful for that," he said coldly. "But let's not confuse gratitude with love, Charlotte. They're not the same thing." I stared at him, struggling to breathe, my mind spinning wildly, trying desperately to make sense of his words, his tone, this stranger standing in my kitchen. Natalie stepped forward, her stiletto heels clicking sharply against the tile. She looked me up and down slowly, her gaze dripping with contempt. Her lipstick was flawless. Her words were not. "You've done your part, Charlotte. You were a decent nurse and a good caretaker. But Gregory deserves a woman who matches his status, not someone stumbling home every night in a wrinkled grocery store uniform smelling like produce." Her words cut deeper than any surgical blade. I turned to Gregory, silently begging him to defend me, to tell her she was wrong. But he didn't. She's right, he said matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. Look at yourself, Charlotte. You've completely let yourself go. You don't take care of yourself anymore. Is this really what I'm supposed to want in a wife? It's honestly pathetic. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. My throat burned with unshed tears, and I swallowed hard against the pain. We have children, Gregory. We have a family. He laughed, a short, bitter sound that didn't sound like him at all. No, Charlotte. You take the kids. They're your responsibility. This house stays with me. It's always been mine, and it always will be. You don't belong here anymore. You're throwing us out. My voice came out as barely a whisper. His eyes flicked to the clock on the wall. You've got 20 minutes. Pack your things, grab the kids' clothes, and leave. Natalie and I don't want a scene. Natalie crossed her arms, examining her manicured nails. Be smart about this, Charlotte. Don't embarrass yourself. Take what you need and go quietly. Some battles are already lost. I stared at them both, this man I had loved with everything I had, who now looked straight through me like I was invisible. He didn't see the wife who gave him a kidney. He didn't see the woman who had nursed him back to life, who had sacrificed her body and her health and her peace of mind. He saw nothing but something disposable. Clock's ticking, he said, and turned his back on me. I don't remember packing. My body moved on autopilot while my mind floated somewhere far away, screaming silently into the void. I threw the kids' clothes into garbage bags, grabbed their shoes, stuffed Lily's art supplies and Hudson's favorite blanket into my arms. My hands shook the entire time. Mommy, why are we leaving? Hudson asked, his big brown eyes wide with confusion and fear. Did we do something bad? No, baby, I said softly, kneeling down to pull him close. We're just going to stay with Grandma for a little while. Everything's going to be okay. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. When I carried the last bag out to my old Toyota, I passed through the living room one final time. Gregory was already settled on the couch next to Natalie, laughing, pouring her a glass of red wine like he didn't have a single care in the world. The same man who had sobbed in my arms during his darkest moments, who had held our daughter when she was born, now acted like none of it had ever mattered. I closed the door behind me and felt something inside me break, not loudly, but slowly, painfully, irreversibly. A week crawled by. I stayed at my mother's house in Maplewood, and she welcomed us without hesitation or judgment. Her home was small and cramped, but it was warm and safe. We made it work. That I was folding laundry late one night, my mother already asleep, when I heard a knock at the front door. I opened it cautiously. There he was. Gregory. But not the Gregory the first remembered. His hair was greasy and unwashed. His clothes were wrinkled and stained with what looked like mustard. His eyes were hollow and bloodshot, underscored by dark circles. He looked like a man who'd been broken into pieces. Charlotte, he breathed, gripping the door frame like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Please. I made a terrible mistake. I said nothing. I didn't need to point. One of his old college friends had already called me 3 days earlier. Natalie had cleaned him out, emptied his bank accounts, pawned his watch collection, stolen his passport and birth certificate, and disappeared without a trace. She took everything, he whispered, his voice cracking. I don't know where to go. I don't have anything left. He looked up at me with wet, desperate eyes. I love you, Charlotte. I've always loved you. I lost my way for a while. You know that, right? You mean everything to me. Please just give me one more chance. I let him speak, but I felt nothing. His words barely registered over the flood of memories crashing through my mind. I saw myself waking up at 5 a.m., cooking bland oatmeal for his renal diet, helping him to the bathroom when he was too weak to walk alone. I saw myself limping through grocery shifts with my incision still healing, exhausted and in pain, all while he recovered at home with the kidney I gave him. And I remembered his exact words, take the kids. You don't belong here anymore. Gregory, I said quietly, my voice steady and calm. When I gave you my kidney, I gave you more than an organ. I gave you my trust, my loyalty, my entire heart. And you threw all of it away like it was garbage. I was an idiot, he sobbed. I know I was. But please, Charlotte, let me make this right. I can change. I swear I'll change. I shook my head slowly. No. I don't have any more chances to give you. I have 2 children to raise and a life to rebuild, and you're not part of it anymore. He dropped to his knees on the porch. Please, Charlotte, I'll do anything. Anything at all. I took one step back and quietly closed the door. He stayed there for a long time, knocking softly, calling my name, begging. But eventually the sounds faded into silence. And with them, the last hold he had over me disappeared, too. After that night, Gregory vanished from my life completely. I heard through mutual friends that he tried reaching out to Natalie, but she never responded. She'd gotten what she wanted and moved on. He was left alone, picking up the shattered pieces by himself. Meanwhile, my life slowly began to heal. My mother's house might have been cramped, but it was filled with laughter and love. Lily and Hudson settled back into a comfortable routine. I cooked simple meals, helped with homework, and read them bedtime stories until they fell asleep curled up beside me. A month later, I got a call from Andrew, an old friend from high school who worked in HR. "My company's hiring for their accounting department," he said. "I immediately thought of you. You've always been one of the hardest working, most reliable people I know. You deserve something better than Quick Shop." I took the job without hesitation. It wasn't glamorous or high-paying, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in years: stability and dignity. I worked hard, came home to my kids, and for the first time in forever, felt genuine peace. One afternoon, while walking home from Brookside Elementary, Lily slipped her small hand into mine and looked up at me. "Mom," she said thoughtfully, "you smile a lot more now." That simple observation hit me harder than anything Gregory had ever said. That evening, I sat by the living room window, watching stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. For the first time in what felt like forever, my chest didn't ache with anxiety or grief. I had spent so many years pouring everything I had into someone who never truly valued me, who saw my love as something to exploit rather than cherish. Now I was finally pouring that love back into myself, and into the two precious little humans who needed me most. Gregory's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it also woke me up in ways I never expected. It forced me to see my own worth, to recognize that I deserved better than scraps of affection and gratitude disguised as love. I may have given him a part of my body, but he no longer held any piece of my heart. As I tucked my children into bed that night, kissing their soft cheeks and turning out the lights, I made a silent promise to myself, a vow that felt sacred and unbreakable. From now on, my love and my strength would only go to those who truly deserved it. And for the first time in years, that promise felt like freedom instead of loss. I closed their bedroom door softly and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to their gentle breathing. A smile spread across my face, genuine, unburdened, free. I had given Gregory a kidney and saved his life, but in the end I had saved my own.